Hey everybody, welcome back to Drilling Deeper, a Pit and Quarry podcast. This is episode 51. I'm Kevin Yanik, and today we're going to be talking about the Pacific Northwest, as I was out in Oregon and Washington in recent weeks and had the opportunity to visit with aggregate producers in that part of the country. But first, a word from our show sponsor. Did you know East Rock Solutions is now part of the Kemper Group? And together, they're raising the bar on parts availability, equipment solutions, and turnkey plant design. From the pit to the stockpile, Kemper Group has got your operation covered. To learn more, visit KemperEquipment.com or call 610-273-2066. Thanks to Kemper. All right, well, we'll get the show rolling here. We don't have Jack today. He's on vacation. If he's listening to this, hope you're enjoying that, Jack. But as I mentioned at the top, we're going to talk about the Pacific Northwest. That's a territory that we probably don't cover quite as much at Pit and Quarry, arguably because we're based here in the Midwest, so we tend to get out to Ohio and surrounding states, and you could argue, I suppose, that the Pacific Northwest is a little bit forgotten. For me personally, I had never actually been to the states of Oregon and Washington, so it was a great opportunity to check them out, to visit with some producers out there. Familiar with Knife River, Allied Rock, and Washington Rock Quarries whom we're going to hear a little bit about today, as we've had at least one of them to our Pit and Quarry Roundtable and conference in the past, and come across others through trade shows and other touch points within the industry. But we're going to play parts of 3 interviews that I captured on the road while visiting those operations, and we're going to start with Allied Rock, which is one of 2 producers I visited in Oregon. And I just want to thank Andrew Sigmund and Gibson Kenzie. Gibson's the chief construction officer at Allied Rock, and Andrew's the president of the company, for really opening their doors, affording me the opportunity to sit down, talk about the business, talk about the markets they're serving in Oregon, and check out a couple of their operations. You know, Andrew opened the X Rock Quarry up to me, and the company's newly acquired South Rock Quarry, which isn't too far from that X Rock site. So I got to see some of the equipment that they have in the operation, and got to see and hear a little bit about how they're utilizing portable crushing and screening equipment to get material out the door, but also learn a little bit too about their contracting business, as that supplements what they're doing with their own aggregate operations there at Allied Rock. So I did capture some audio and video at both of those sites with Andrew, and you're going to hear the first of 2 here shortly. This is me and Andrew at the X Rock Quarry.
So we're again at the X Rock Quarry, and this is a site you guys have been operating for almost a decade now, I guess, at this point, but the origin story's kind of an interesting one. Tell our viewers a little bit about the site and how you guys got it underway.
Yeah, so we acquired the site in 2017, and it was a legacy quarry, been in operation for about 50 years. There were a lot of improvements that needed to be made to bring the site into compliance, state and federal perspective, and also just to make it an efficient, productive commercial operation. So we recognized that pretty early on and jumped in, rebuilt haul roads, changed the mining methods to get the site where it was functional and could produce rock reliably and efficiently.
Yeah. In 2025, what are you guys seeing at this site? I mean, we talked about the market off camera a little bit earlier, Andrew, but it's been kind of an interesting year. So in terms of production and activity, what's been taking place here this year?
It has. So we've had a steady year at the quarry. We've got a full-time aggregate salesman who's done a lot of work meeting with customers and securing sales to keep the production ahead of the crushing crews here. While it's been a good steady year, it certainly could stand to see some improvements, some tailwinds from some lower interest rates, and like we talked earlier, passage of a robust ODOT funding package.
And we're on site here as this plant's getting ready to go off and do portable crushing and screening job you had mentioned. So, and that's obviously a big part of the business at Allied Rock.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that segment of the business and how that kind of gels with the operations and looking for jobs out in the field.
Yeah, thank you. So we initially started with crushers for our own use, and then recognized pretty quickly that there was a need for portable crushing for timber companies, municipalities, local counties, and so moved into that niche pretty quickly and have really expanded that. We started with 1 portable crusher back in about 2008, and today we have 5 portable crushing sites that'll operate around the state, doing a variety of recycle crushing, just crushing 3/4 minus base rock, specialty products like chip seal rock or asphalt rock, and serving a variety of customers in different markets.
I appreciate you showing us the X-Rock Quarry here at Pig and Quarry, and for more information, check out pigandquarry.com.
All right, well, that was Andrew Sigmund at Allied Rock at the X-Rock Quarry. Again, we saw the crushing and screening equipment there in the background. They're actually getting ready to move that equipment to another site for a portable contracting job. Again, Allied Rock is a portable contractor doing crushing and screening, but they also are building up their own operations to serve their own internal needs and meet the needs of the market. So I thought it was interesting to kind of hear how they're balancing the contracting part of the business as they're also trying to build up the operational side with their own sites. And again, kind of a classic example of what's transpiring there with the X-Rock Quarry and Allied Rock. And not too far down the road, maybe 10, 15 minutes, I guess, if that, we got down to the South Rock Quarry. That was a site that Allied Rock acquired here in 2025, and they had some crushing activity within this year. There wasn't any taking place while I was on site there with Andrew, but we're going to hear a little bit from Andrew in this second part of our video at the South Rock Quarry, where he talked about the activity that took place there here in 2025, and he's going to share his outlook for the operation and the industry at large, as well as touch on some of the technology that they're really exploring at this point with their operations.
We're here at the South Rock Quarry in Oregon. We've got Andrew with us once again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kevin.
It's the second stop we've made in the day. It's been a great day. This site, just like X-Rock, which we saw earlier in the day, is an acquired operation and one that you guys got off and running here in 25. Tell us about the acquisition of this site, how it kind of fits into the portfolio of Allied Rock's mine properties, and what essentially transpired in this first year of operation here.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so we were fortunate to work with the landowner to acquire a long-term lease on this site, and we see this quarry is one that's going to serve the Salem metro market and up and down the I-5 corridor. We very quickly came in and started mining, putting up feedstock, and then moved in a screen plant and a crusher in early August, and have started producing base rock, getting ready for sales. As soon as we acquired the quarry, we did some plant transfers, bringing rock from one of our other quarries from X-Rock. So immediately we had rock on the ground to start serving customers in the area. So it's been a great site. We've got rock going out the gate every day.
I was asking you earlier too, what you kind of learned from an X-Rock Quarry transformation to what you can apply here at South Rock. And it seems like there's a lot that can be done. And there's still more future here ahead. But when you think about that history with X-Rock and how you kind of brought it to where you wanted it to be at the end of the day, what's that going to look like here?
Yeah, I think we really have a strong marketing plan, and we've gained a lot of experience with permitting and quarry regulation. So really focusing on meeting our customers where they're at, working with the contractor base, being plugged into the local markets, knowing what projects are coming up and what this quarry can serve, and realizing that the sales necessarily aren't going to come to you. You have to go search those out. So we're really proactive in that piece.
Related enough there, Andrew, on the M&A front, we cover that a lot at the magazine. Continuous activity. This was part of that, that you added that via acquisition here, South Rock. As you're exploring prospective sites, because there's so many out there across the country, whether here in Oregon or elsewhere, but from the Allied Rock point of view, what are you looking for as you're looking for something that's going to fit into the portfolio of
Sure.
operational sites that you want to have?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're looking for sites that have a market, defined market that they can serve, and have a resource available to serve that market. We're not looking for sites that are just a quarry just for the sake of having a rock quarry. We need to be able to define that customer base and know that we have a market to serve wherever we're looking. So we seem to like hard rock quarries. That's what we know. We're really good at moving overburden and shooting rock, drilling and blasting rock.
Andrew, if I can ask one more question, just about the general state of the industry, because we're, coming up on the end of 2025, but if you had to characterize the year that was, and we're almost 9 months through here, 3/4 through, how did 2025 match up to your expectations? And I guess maybe it's a little preliminary to ask about 26, but what do you What are you hoping for? What are you looking at as you're thinking about next year at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. 25 has been a decent year, but we're really, like everybody, we're affected by interest rates. We need developers to develop so that builders can build, and we need homeowners to buy homes. But ultimately, we need an interest rate cut. That's important in this industry. And we feel like if we can see an interest rate cut sometime here this fall, that's really going to kickstart things for 2026. We're cautiously optimistic that 26 will be a good year. We're looking for an ODOT funding package. That's going to be critical for the infrastructure funding here in Oregon for both ODOT and then the money that they send out to cities and counties. So those are a couple pieces that we're watching pretty close.
Just one more question. I always have one more question, I guess. Yes, Andrew, but we talked about technology quite a bit today, and you guys are incorporating that, exploring that, seem eager to find ways to bring operations, up to speed with where you see them needing to be. Tell us about 2 or 3 of the interesting things you guys have done of late on the technological front, because just seeing about it and hearing about it today myself, it's very interesting what you guys are looking at.
Yeah, so we've, for about the last year, we've been working with some OEM providers on autonomous technology, especially as it applies to our quarry operations. And so we're looking specifically at off-road haul trucks, dozers, wheel loaders, and AI with those machines, where we can implement that in very repetitive tasks, such as load, haul, dump, maybe a dozer pushing in a waste area or pushing up a stockpile. Places where we don't need to utilize an employee, we'd rather utilize their skills in a more critical function, critical path portion of our operations. So we're excited about the opportunities, and AI has been in the minds, autonomy's been in the minds for a long time, but AI is bringing that down to the scale where mid-level contractors and smaller operators like ourselves can utilize that technology.
All right, well, that was part 2 of our interview with Andrew Sigmund of Allied Rock. Andrew touched on the interest rate cut that's needed for the market there, really needed for the U.S. as a whole. And I think as I had come back from Oregon and Washington State, the Fed had actually done a cut. There were talks about them doing 2, and I think they ultimately went down with 1. But that's a good thing for the industry at large. It's good for construction. Residential's kind of been stagnant here in 2025 and for the last few years. So hopefully that cut gets some momentum on the residential construction front, as materials are dependent, whether you're Allied Rock or anybody else in the country. Materials production is dependent on that sort of support. So let's hope that we see that off and running here sooner than later. And I thought it was interesting at the very end of the interview, Andrew touched on the technology they're using there. He talked about AI and scaling technology to a point where it's ultimately viable for a midsize and small contractors like an Allied Rock. And we talked on the show quite a bit about autonomous hauling, AI, and how that's coming into the industry and has come into the industry, but it's really something that the largest producers are exploring. And I thought it was really interesting to hear Andrew share that's something that they're seriously exploring. I think the cost industry-wide, that was something that was kind of prohibitive to certain size producers, certain types of companies getting in, but I think that's encouraging to know that an Allied Rock is already looking at that for operations. He talked about the idea of load, haul, dump, so and using dozers, using trucks, so I'm sure that's going to be something to keep an eye on even further in 26 and in the years that follow. But thanks again to Andrew Sigmund at Allied Rock for showing off his operations and for talking the trade with me there in his office. Well, as I departed the South Rock Quarry, I ventured down the same day to Knife River's training center in nearby Albany, Oregon. It was really only 20 minutes or so from that Allied Rock site, the South Rock Quarry, and the Knife River Training Center is something I'd been wanting to get to for the last 2 or 3 years. It's not necessarily an old facility by any means. It's something that kind of has come online in the last 2 or 3 years, and they're really trying to scale it even larger at this point here in 25 at Knife River. But I remember attending the Dirt World event back in 2023. I think it was in Houston that year, and they had a little trade show as part of that Dirt World event, and Knife River was there kind of talking about the training center and what they were trying to do, what the opportunities were there for the industry, and how Knife River was ultimately utilizing that to train its own people. So I had the opportunity at that point in 23 to learn about it. I remember it must have been 24 when I sat down with Knife River CEO Brian Gray. We were talking about Knife River becoming a publicly traded company around that time, and part of our conversation shifted to this training center in Oregon, and how impressive it was, and how I needed to get out there at some point. So 25 finally arrived and had the opportunity to kind of marry a Knife River Training Center visit up with Allied Rock and the Washington Rock Quarries site visits that you're going to hear about in a little bit. But again, I was out there in September at Knife River's facility, and very impressive. Kris Latimer and her team were gracious hosts. It wasn't just the indoor components that were impressive, but they have a lot of outdoor spaces that Kris is going to talk about in our video interview here in a moment. But really kudos to them on developing a really impressive site. It's really unlike anything else I've seen in the industry, and I challenge anybody else to say they've seen anything quite like it if they've been out there or get the chance to be out there. But at its core, the training center has an 80,000 square foot heated dome with a dirt arena, and at the end of the day, it's tall enough for full-scale, heavy equipment training year-round. Doesn't matter what the weather is. It rains a lot there in Oregon, so it's not a problem for them to continue with training during those parts of the year. The dome has a concrete viewing platform. It's got built-in emissions monitoring and even GPS-grade control capability, so operators can train indoors just like they would on a real job site. Pretty awesome to see it in action. And like I said, the center kind of goes beyond the dome. It really sits on more than 200 acres. I think it's 230 acres or more. And they really have kind of shaped it to kind of mirror real-world industry challenges. You know, trainees encounter haul roads, graded turns, and even a mock sim town that they kind of created that's equipped with paved and gravel streets. So they're really doing a lot, too, with technology. So even if you're not at the center, there's hybrid learning taking place beyond the in-person learning, where Knife River can train people outside of those grounds. It makes it really something extra special. They can only bring so many people in to do on-site training. I think they had mentioned Knife River employs 7,500 people, so you can imagine bringing all 7,500 in at least once, or some of those in multiple times, isn't necessarily an easy endeavor. But the remote capabilities of this facility lends itself to reaching more people, and even beyond this, Knife River is finding opportunities to utilize the facility for purposes outside of its own internal Knife River use. So with that, that's a little rundown of the training facility, and Kris Latimer is going to provide some history and background of it. This is an active site at one point that Knife River had, an acquired site. So let me turn it over to Kris at this point, and you'll hear some interview back and forth between Kris Latimer and me.
Hey everybody, Kevin Yanik at Pit and Quarry, and we're at their Knife River training facility here in Oregon. We've got Kris Latimer with us to visit. Great to see you, Kris.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming out and visiting today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the tour. Had an awesome afternoon here out in Oregon. Just wanted to give our readers the opportunity, our listeners and viewers, a chance to hear a little bit more about this facility. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of different components, and it's still growing. But tell us a little bit about the history of this site, kind of how it came off the ground with Knife River, and how we got to this point here in 2025.
Well, this is a special site. It is a legacy site, really. It dates back to one of the largest acquisitions early on that Knife River made, which was Morse Brothers. It's a 230-acre mined out or exhausted sand and gravel quarry. And it was finished out in about 2019, and it sat here for a while. They didn't know what they were going to utilize it for necessarily, or what kind of reclamation they were going to do here. And then the big idea came up that we should have a training center at Knife River, a home for our learning services team at that time. So they began a conversation about that. The presidents in the company told the learning services director at that time, Dan Abbott, who's a legend in the industry, told Dan, dream big, make and create something that we can really be proud of, and that's world class. And so that's why it is what it is now. It's a world-class training facility on an exhausted sand and gravel quarry
And there's so much to it. I mean, you see the dome here in the background. There's first-class, state-of-the-art facilities inside classrooms, and the CDL building, which came online earlier this year here in 25. And it seems like there's potentially more to come, as we saw some of the outdoor areas that they're already actively being used, and better potential for the future based on the site as well.
Right. So we have our simulated urban road network, which we toured earlier, building out more content down there, new opportunities to train both drivers and operators in a simulated urban setting. And then we visited the mine site. The mine site is probably the next area that we'll be developing out up that direction. We already have our asphalt silo that's going to go up there. Gives us an opportunity to set up conveyor systems, all sorts of different operations and things that happen inside this company to make, to be a vertically integrated aggregate and construction company. Everything that we do in our company, we want to be able to do here on site, safe, away from the public, and behind the gate.
Kris, we talked early on today just about the idea of promoting the industry and the value that it provides to the country at large, and the challenge the industry has with bringing people in and retaining people, hiring people, and ultimately helping them build great careers within aggregates and related construction materials fields. So a facility like this to me embodies a solution to the challenge that the producers like Knife River and others have faced for years. And I feel like it probably has helped to not only bring in the next generation of people, but showcase what's potentially possible in the decades to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like we talked about earlier, one of our goals here as a team, and a goal that Knife River has, is really to elevate careers in construction to careers of choice again, like they were decades ago. And so we open our doors every year to over 2,000 high school students. We put on specific programming for them. We've also put on specific programming to educate educators about the construction industry and the aggregates industry. We're not only doing that to benefit Knife River, we're doing that to benefit the industry, to raise the bar for everybody. So.
To bring in more people, to bring in better people, and like you said, raise the bar. I think that's a good way to kind of characterize what we're trying to do in terms of the standards of the way we go about doing work.
Knife River is being an innovator when it comes to training and supporting the development of our team members, whether it's an operator, a driver, or someone on a management track. We are innovating and using the latest and greatest technology that we can get our hands on. So we got to demo our in-cab camera and communication systems for you. It allows us to do live training with the operator in the cab, while we also have students in the classroom or in other locations in other states. We can virtually be delivering operator training. Using video and communication also with CDL to attain a higher completion rate and really outstanding CDL success rates with the licensing tests. And in the classroom, we don't take, our instructors are all trained to be instructors. So it doesn't matter if they're instructing on a piece of equipment, a CDL instructor, or a soft skills instructor. They all go through a process to develop skills that lead to high quality adult education. So the transfer of learning is super important. So we use the latest identified methods to get that learning across.
And you touched on it already a little bit, Kris, but it seems like if the standard is X, the technology is helping to evolve people to higher standards. We saw that in the CDL facility in terms of some of the rates there, and
right.
Same thing here with some of the equipment training.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact that Caterpillar Peoria sends all of their instructors here to get trained to be instructors by our instructors, I think really speaks volumes. And so, we are trying to apply all of these methods and all of this technology in a way that really gets us to that next bar.
Well, again, that was Kris Latimer of Knife River. They're at the Knife River Training Center. Really appreciate her and her team spending the time with me. Beyond Kris, I want to thank Alan Nichols, Alex Reyes, and Michael Glazier. They spent a lot of time with me while I was out there that one afternoon in September. And again, really awesome to see that. Talked about the workforce with Kris during that video, and I think this is going to go a long way, not only at Knife River, but I think anybody who has the capability on the producer front to make an investment like this, it's going to go a long way to kind of build up our workforce, train the workforce, show them the right ways to do things, i.e. doing things in a safer way. At the same time, I think it really promotes the awesome, unbelievable things that our industry does, puts a focus on equipment and technology. So I really want to congratulate Knife River on that investment and thank their leaders at the training center for being gracious hosts. Thanks again. Well, Knife River's Training Center was the second stop on my 3-part leg of the Pacific Northwest, and I did venture up to Washington Rock Quarries, which is south of Seattle, north of Olympia, kind of near Tacoma. Again, this is a part of the country I had never visited myself. Beautiful part of the country, both Washington State and Oregon. And Jonathan Hart, the vice president of Washington Rock Quarries, was the host during my 2 operational tours at this company. Jonathan is a producer that I had the opportunity to meet through his attendance and participation in the Pit and Quarry Roundtable and Conference. I know he's been to at least a couple of those. And Jonathan, I remember your first roundtable, gosh, it had to be 3 or 4 years ago, and I know you came from Washington to, I believe, Atlanta, and you had some travel issues. And I know getting across the country is not the easiest thing. So we've always appreciated your engagement in Pit and Quarry's events, and hope to have you back there as well. But Jonathan showed me 2 sites they have there. The King Creek Pit was the first one I saw. The Kapowsin Quarry was impressive as well. Second site, hard rock site that Washington Rock Quarries is running. And as we were kind of wrapping up our 2 site visits, Jonathan was gracious enough to get on camera with me, answer some questions, talk about some of the activity they have taking place at both those sites, and talk about the market at large. And just for some background, I guess I should put out there, Washington Rock Quarries is a 35-year-old company. They currently serve markets going up northward to Seattle, down southward to Olympia, and markets in between. He shared some big project details. They had some activity of late, both at the King Creek Pit and the Kapowsin Quarry, some big investments, some big CapEx activity taking place there. So we're going to touch on that in our video interview as well. And just like we heard from Andrew earlier in the show, Jonathan's going to talk about kind of the market and what's taking place there in his Washington state markets, the regions that he's serving. So with that, let's play some sound from Jonathan Hart.
Got John Hart with Washington Rock Quarries with us here. We're at the Kapowsin Quarry in Washington State. We just saw the King Creek Pit as well. John, tell us a little about the 2 operations you got here and what some of the equipment that's key to processing here.
Yeah, so the Kapowsin Quarry, we started that about 1990. Started out as a family business, and we've been growing ever since. And we've been operating here in the South Puget Sound area, supplying the major markets up in Tacoma and Seattle with any crushed rock product needs that they have. And we have a couple critical pieces of equipment here. We're using 773s to haul material from the face here out to the processing plant. You got a LT140 mobile track jaw crusher that's in place right now that we're using to crush our shot rock down to a 8-inch minus, and from there we produce whatever material that the market might be needing at that time, anything from road base to erosion control materials and anything that the customer might desire.
Here at Kapowsin, John, you were kind of walking me through the 2024 plant upgrade, kind of the exciting one you found. Tell us the story about that for our viewers.
Yeah, so the long-term goal was always, to expand the plant and upgrade it to increase the production capacity there. And so during our journey for trying to find equipment out there, we came across a plant that was for sale in Canada through one of our equipment salesmen who operates in that area. And it was an old Malott plant that they had built for a processor for out there in their gold mines. And so we were able to go out there, take a look at it. It met our needs. We liked it. We were able to put a deal together. And about 4 years ago, we were able to get the plant down here, and during that time, we realized that we had to kind of accelerate our plans. So instead of waiting 7 years, we had to do it right away. And so, yeah, over the last 2.5 years, we put that plant together and kind of adapted it to our needs, made some key upgrades with increasing the size of one of the gyratories. We upgraded it from a GP300 to a GP500, changed the feed system, and we were able to achieve what we were looking for as far as doubling the ability, doubling our production. And we were able to get that up and running, and we've been running it for the past year, and everything's been working great. And we actually got a fully automated system in there, so it's all computer controlled with the latest with PLC technology and automation. And yeah, the guys love it. It puts rock out on the ground in spec, and working with our local Metso dealer, we've been able to keep the equipment in good shape, and any problems we've come across, we've been able to fix them.
John, one of the takeaways for me, being here at the Kapowsin Quarry, we talked about efficiency, all the way from the drill and blast, kind of to getting the product into the pile to be loaded out and go out the door at the end of the day. But when you're being a quarry operator, it's all about efficiencies at the end of the day, kind of shoring up different ends of the process. And we were just talking about kind of your passion is the numbers side and looking for those areas where you can kind of tighten things up a bit in the operations side. So I guess just that whole idea, that concept, whether it's the drill blast or the crush and screen or something else in the operations, just the idea of continuously looking for efficiencies.
Yeah, so our focus has definitely been, first looking at the equipment. We've also been looking at the people side of it too, figuring out what it takes to make the employee happy, how to get them the best equipment to do the job. And combining those two things, we want to kind of get that holistic kind of those synergies put together to create a company not only that people want to work for, but that we can be a good, fair cost supplier to our customers, be able to make a profit and, take that profit and then roll it back into the company to, better the equipment that the employees are using and, get our employees a fair wage. And so hopefully at the end of the day, all that combines together, make a great company and something that makes money. And at the end of the day, everyone can go home happy that they were working here.
John, we talked a little bit in the truck on the ride along here about just the market out here in Washington State. You guys are going up to Seattle, down to Olympia, it sounds like, with your materials. What's been transpiring here in 2025, and what's your outlook for 2026 and beyond at this stage?
Well, we've seen a lot of warehouse type projects going on locally. We see a lot of big highway projects coming up. We know we have some new highway construction coming up over the next 3 to 5 years. There are also big infrastructure projects coming up. So overall, the market here in Washington State is looking pretty good. I'd say anywhere from it's going to be steady, or we're going to see a nice increase over the next 3 to 5 years. And especially, with what the Fed's going to decide here in the next week, we're probably going to see some more action there in the housing market if they lower interest rates, and we will see, a lot more activity on that end of the spectrum as well.
All right. Well, that was Jonathan Hart of Washington Rock Quarries. Thanks again for opening your doors to your operations, Jonathan, and great to hear too that you've got some optimism, just as we kind of heard from Andrew Sigmund at the top of the show, for the road ahead for 2025's remaining months and what 2026 is shaping up to look like. So great to be in the field with producers like Washington Rock Quarries, Knife River, and Allied Rock. I wrote my column for the October edition, kind of reflecting on those 3 site visits. So you can read that in the coming days at pitandquarry.com. If not now, it may be on there now. But between putting the magazine out, between doing the podcast, attending trade shows and industry conferences, there's only so much time for me to actually get out into some of these quarries from time to time. So I do make a point to get out to sites, to see our readers. And it's been a great opportunity, one, to just get content for the podcast like this. We've cut some videos from these visits as well, and you can see those at pitandquarry.com. We've got a video section of the website, but just to kind of get out at the end of the day and hear what's happening with with our readers, with you, our listeners. At the end of the day, our core reader, our core listener, is the aggregate producers. So it's vital for me as the editorial director of Pit and Quarry to get out there, learn what's happening on the business front, see what's transpiring with equipment and technology, and see it in real world settings, and see how our readers are doing things from a safety standpoint as well. So again, really want to give a huge shout out to the 3 companies we featured on the show today. And if you're out there listening and you're wondering how or why can Pit and Quarry get out to your sites, I just encourage you to reach out to me, reach out to Jack. We're always looking for sites to feature. Some of the content that we touched on today with Allied Rock, Washington Rock Quarries, and Knife River is going to wind up in the pages of Pit and Quarry. So some exclusive content to come in the magazine, but just the way as we're kind of showcasing those companies and their operations and their successes, there's opportunities for you to do the same. So reach out to Jack Kapansky, reach out to me, and if you're open to having a Pit and Quarry representative out to your operations, we'd certainly love to come out and see what it is you're doing in your neck of the woods. Beyond those site visits in the Pacific Northwest, what else can you look for at Pit and Quarry these days? Well, I did mention that my October column is available or will be made available here in the coming days as we're dropping this in the early parts of October, this episode. But our October edition is going to contain our buyer's guide. That's a handy resource that many of our readers use throughout the year. We've got regular content, tech, business, and safety within that edition, the October edition of Pit and Quarry, but we also have our annual 2025-26 buyer's guide within that. So be sure to put that aside, check out our regular content, but use that as a resource for your CapEx and equipment purchasing decisions. And we're getting closer to the drop of the Pit and Quarry University Handbook. I know I've mentioned it along with Jack in past episodes of Drilling Deeper. We are going to be putting that out in November. So if we're already talking about October, you can imagine we're in the final stretch here of shaping that up. We're going to have pretty much all the content in the print edition of the Pit and Quarry University Handbook available on pitandquarry.com as well. It's a great resource for new employee training, for employee orientation. Really goes through all things aggregate processing. We've got an industry overview plan for the very first chapter in that, and we're going to go all the way out through load out and scales and weighing, with everything in between covered for all things aggregates operations, aggregates processing. So many of you are probably familiar with that. We haven't put one of those out in quite a few years, but we got to 2025 as we were doing our planning for this year and determined we want to do this again. So look for your 2025 edition of the Pit and Quarry University Handbook here in the coming weeks, and it's going to be polybagged with our November edition. So getting close on that. If you're looking for more Pit and Quarry Drilling Deeper podcast content, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 50, as we featured Elliot Tribble of General Kinematics. He's the director of aggregate at GK, and he sat down with Jack Kapansky. They discussed quite a bit, actually, as it pertains to screening. They talked about the importance of matching screen design to specific applications, how to navigate industry challenges and implications for stricter product specifications, as well as the value of uptime and maintenance trends. So that, again, is an episode featuring General Kinematics' Elliot Tribble. It's episode 50. Check it out at drillingdeeperpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And before that particular episode 50, we had some ConExpo ConAg conversation as Jack was at a Chicago meeting. So we talked to some equipment manufacturers about the show. And again, as we're sitting here in September looking into October, dropping this episode, we're already starting to plan our big pre-show plans for ConExpo ConAg 2026. It's always big at Pit and Quarry. It's pretty much big for anybody who's exhibiting or attending as well. And check out episode 49 as we've got some ConExpo ConAg focus that you can take in to kind of get your palate wet for what's to come in March of 2026 with that Las Vegas trade show. I also want to give a shout out to Marie Emmerich, our digital media specialist. Marie's off camera here, and she's shaking her head. We never got her on camera. We tried, Jack and I, for the last 50 episodes, and we never got her in the chair here, and I regret that. She's very resistant, but Marie's going to be leaving us. This is actually the last episode in the office for Marie. We are going to miss you. I think about the history of this show, and you were obviously instrumental in bringing it off the ground. If I'm going to be honest, I had doubts that this was going to work, but we're 50 in now, and we've got great momentum. You were huge in not only the creation of this show, but the execution of it every 2 weeks as we drop this as a bi-weekly podcast. And you've been not only great with the podcast, but with so many of the digital touch points that Pit and Quarry has. And you basically put in 4 years for us, and we're going to miss you. The show will go on, but I really wish you the best in your future endeavors. And I don't know, maybe we'll get the next digital media specialist on camera. They probably will be sitting here. We never got you in the chair, but again, just a huge thank you to everything you did for Drilling Deeper and for Pit and Quarry, and best of luck. Well, I want to issue one more thank you, and let's hear a word for our show sponsor once more. Did you know East Rock Solutions is now part of the Kemper Group? And together, they're raising the bar on parts availability, equipment solutions, and turnkey plant design. From the pit to the stockpile, Kemper Group has got your operation covered. To learn more, visit KemperEquipment.com or call 610-273-2066. Thanks to Kemper. Thanks again to Kemper. Thanks again to Andrew Sigmund of Allied Rock, Kris Latimer of Knife River, and Jonathan Hart of Washington Rock Quarries. Great to see your sites again, and we'll have another episode of Drilling Deeper for you in the weeks to come. So we'll see you next time.